Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show hoping to find some squish and a little ish in all of your cis. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight blurs the line between male and female, gay and straight, human and cat cyborg. Welcome, Vila Bianca.
Meow.
And our guest tonight is part activist, part sex symbol, and all woman, reintroducing the patron saint of SecX, Miss Arden of Eden.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for this episode, you guys. I need this in my life right now. You guys, we're going to be talking about some really fun stuff, including the super straights and micro-cheating. So if you guys have anything you want to share around these topics around toxic heteronormativity, please feel free to call the show at 512-991-9242, or if you are abroad or don't feel like picking up a phone, go to tiny.cc/call-sex or whatever. I'm going to keep saying that as long as it's in the notes. So
as long as it's in the notes, maybe we should update our paperwork. Okay, I'm getting the message on my preparations. But let's start, I guess, by clearing up what we mean by toxic. It feels like it goes without saying, but it's maybe worth pointing out that apples are not poisonous, but a poison apple is. Monogamy isn't toxic, but toxic monogamy is. It's simple semantics, but we're here to talk about toxicity. So what does toxic, white-knuckle monogamy look like?
Yeah, I mean, some of the articles we were sharing between our group, it was really fascinating reading this. It seems like they're marketed towards men is the impression that I've gotten. And it also seemed that their impression of monogamy is like inherently codependent. I don't know if you guys picked
that's
up
fair
on
to
that.
say. Yeah, yes. and incredibly possessive. There's no respect for autonomy. I guess just generally speaking, I think we're talking about a culture where jealousy is seen as maybe a virtue even, or at the very least, like a necessary part of a relationship. I mean, I feel like every relationship I've ever been in has involved some level of anger. And that doesn't mean those relationships were toxic, but we certainly don't go around looking to be angry or to find things to get angry about. It's more about diffusing those emotions. I feel like toxic monogamy is maybe around the idea of like deifying jealousy. Does that line up with what y'all have been reading or what you see?
Well, the interesting thing is, and I'm actually looking at one of these articles that we were talking about earlier, and I do want to read kind of the intro to kind of go off of that, Christy. So this is Learn the Signs of Microcheating by Lauren Harrett. This was published in 2018, so a little outdated. But so it says, when it comes to cheating on your partner, we typically don't think of there being a gray area. You either did or you didn't. But is it possible to cheat just a little bit? As it turns out, yes. Micro-cheating is defined by those little behaviors that may make many of us raise an eyebrow or feel uncomfortable in a way we can't really pin down. That's what this person defines as micro-cheating. And to me, that raises a whole bunch of red flags, right? Because if you are able to say, well, whatever makes me uncomfortable means that you violated our relationship in some way, automatically is a little bit concerning to me, you guys.
Yeah, that's fair to say. And I don't know if you have any particular gems, but I remember so many of those articles had just the most ridiculous examples. This idea that by somehow, talking to a stranger while you're in line at a bar, that you have, sullied your marriage vows. And I mean, just the fragility of these monogamous relationships, at least through this lens, is really devastating.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that they say is micro-cheating is like posting thirst traps or like sexy photos online. And I'm like, wait, what now? I've been in violation of the rules for far too long, you guys, and no one told me. Another is liking somebody's posts too much. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I have hella Twitter crushes. And that is absolutely, Arden, you are one of them. So
you're one
obviously,
of mine too.
this is clearly something that has gotten out of control, and I may have to talk to my partner about this.
Yeah. I thought another one of those that really struck me was they said if you find that your partner is relying on someone else for emotional support, that could be a sign. Like, are you not allowed to have any other people in your life that you turn to for?
Not that you're emotionally close to. No, I mean your partner, your spouse, really is who we're talking here for so much of this in a cishet relationship. If we're being honest, but your partner is supposed to be your best friend and your only friend. Your only sexual partner, your only attraction, your business partner. I mean, we're trying to bundle up all of these identities and then trap people in them like straitjackets.
Yeah, there's another article about this called, I got an ad for eHarmony. Let's X out of that thing. Signs she's cheating. And it goes into microcheating, and some of the signs that she might be microcheating on you is that she's less reachable, or that she's got a new hobby, or that like she's more closed off. And I'm like, I feel like this is probably setting a lot of people up for some really awkward conversations. Like, the reason I'm closed off is because you keep thinking I'm microcheating on you. So sorry.
Well, and we can dunk on these kind of like BuzzFeed relationship quizzes and wonder like, well, who's taking these things seriously? But you don't have to be a therapist to know people are taking these things seriously. I feel like these ideas really are coming up in our culture and showing up in everyday life. I mean, am I being alarmist, or have y'all experienced this sort of thing?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, I feel like I maybe contribute to it in a certain way, because one of my favorite shows to watch are shows like The Bachelor, those dating reality shows, and I love it because it's like watching the straights in their natural habitat is kind of what it feels like, and it's very much that energy, this notion that you're trying to find this person who you're just like so compatible with that if you are codependent, that it'll like work out, at least presumably for a chunk of time. Yeah, it's very, very normalized, I feel like, in the broader culture.
Oh, the funniest part, though, is because I'm very secretly becoming more and more Bachelor watcher, one of those people. But it's so funny to me, especially because, you get down to those like last four people, and the main character, the protagonist, whether it's a guy or a girl, is always so concerned because they're like, I feel love for more than one person, and this is really weird. Oh no, I only have to pick one. What? And it's like, there's like all the tension is around this idea that they have to pick one, and I'm like, there's another way. This could be diffused very quickly. I mean, I don't know if the guys are into it, but like possibly.
Right. Well, and it's worth highlighting here that monogamy is an option, and it's a valid one, right? Like we're specifically talking about toxic monogamy, but it feels like monogamy is one of those sexual identities, like, cis, straight, allosexual, that just gets handed to you at birth, that doesn't necessarily line up with who you are. So what kind of problems show up when you don't like actively choose this for yourself?
Gosh, I mean, you can feel broken. You can feel like you're doing it wrong for some reason, or that you'll never quite be happy. You also can feel a lot of guilt, especially around this concept of things like microcheating, because if you are in an environment where whatever you do that makes your partner uncomfortable is ultimately your fault, and you've violated them in some way, or ruined the relationship or run that risk, right? That's a lot of burden to bear. And you can't even go to anybody about it, because if you're emotionally close to another person, then that's also microcheating. So I guess you're kind of screwed. So yeah, I think it's for some people, it absolutely is the right choice, and people should be supported in doing whatever it is they feel comfortable with. But even people who are monogamous and who will always be monogamous, would benefit from thinking about these things and actually asking themselves that, because there's a lot of peace and a lot of joy that really comes from knowing, oh, this is what I am. It's not just something I opt into unthinkingly. I've done the thinking, I've done the research, I've maybe tried some stuff, and this is where I'm comfortable. And you're able to know that and be comfortable in your skin.
Yeah, well, and I just believe that when people are presented with a spectrum, they get to draw their lines somewhere and figure out where they exist on that spectrum. Whereas if we just try to emulate what we see on movies and TVs and things like that, it suddenly turns into this like really extreme and pretty toxic version of the idea. I think that's where you get this idea that it's okay to, key somebody's car just because you think that they might be cheating on you.
Oh my goodness, yes. The number of country songs that I listened to as a kid that got me really just ready to like have to key some guy's car at some point. Like I was like, I guess this is just part of growing up, is keying.
You have to be ready, yeah. Well, what are some of the warning signs maybe that we ourselves are clinging to this like really patriarchal or maybe possessive form of relating to our partners?
I think part of it is kind of like I personally would consider myself a monogamous person, is kind of this notion of thinking that you are never going to have insecurities, you're never going to have doubt, you're never going to suspect that maybe you're not satisfying your partner's needs on some level. What I think, you approaching any relationship, you have to understand that you are not going to be able to satisfy every single need for an individual person. That's why we live in communities with multiple people. And the notion that even if you are monogamous, that you are just going to, find a person who you are such a perfect fit for that you need absolutely no one else in your life is just really a fantasy that we've unfortunately been convinced might exist in reality.
Yeah, forgive me if this is too fake deep, but if my time at the ACA and sort of the mission of this show has really driven a point home for me, it's the idea that we are not fallen angels, but ascended apes. And apes are social creatures. I can't stress that message enough, that it's baked into our DNA. It's part of, everything we discussed when we explored polyvagal theory and all of these other notions that this show is built on, is the idea that the way that we as mammals relate to one another is socially. We are not built to be rugged individualists, not in these like toxic and extreme ways. And I hate to think that we are unnecessarily mate guarding and putting up all of these barriers and all of these rules around the way that we connect with other human beings that just aren't serving anybody or that just don't need to be there.
Absolutely. The idea of like that fake sense of scarcity around love in general does make it so that you find somebody and you like latch onto them and you're like, I can't believe I found this person. I'm not letting go of them. Nobody else look at them. They're mine. And like, I get those urges still, right? Like there are moments where I'm just like, this person is mine and no one else can look at them. But at the same time, like you have to realize that is something that has been kind of ingrained in you. And there is no reason why you can't share love with multiple people or people with multiple other partners. Like there's nothing inherently about that would take away from your relationship. So yeah, I think just addressing that scarcity component as well is super important.
Well, I'm going to ask V to take us to the phones here in just a moment. But first, I guess I wanted to ask about y'all's individual journeys. I mean, what sorts of things have helped you to identify these thought processes in your own life? And how have you been able to make some of those changes?
Yeah, I think it's kind of counterintuitive when you are a monogamous person wanting to be vulnerable, especially with these messages that we all get handed so frequently. This, like V, you were just saying, that feeling of scarcity, like I have to cling so tightly to this person. But the irony of I think having a healthy, vulnerable relationship with a partner is learning to sit with those feelings and recognize that those are your feelings, and that your partner is not responsible for how, you know, outside forces make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, fully endorse that. I think for me it's interesting, especially because I used to be a monogamous person. And I think that unlike, you know, maybe possibly like gender and sexuality, I can say that like it wasn't like I was a poly person that didn't realize, like, no, I was a monogamous person for a large part of my life. In fact, up until coming to Austin. And I was actually pushed against my will into a poly situation by a previous partner who was poly and needed that, but had ingrained a lot of these negative messages. So the communication wasn't there, and there was a sense of like guilt on his part and, you know, feeling inadequate on my part, and there was no like communication. So it didn't work well at all. So I'm just very happy that I got out of that situation and into a place where I got on shows like Secular Sexuality and talked with people like Marie Delafont, who was one of the first guests that I remember interviewing, talking about building your own relationship style and getting off the relationship escalator, and actually talking about things like polyamory in open, just down to earth ways, not as this thing that was like taboo or this thing that was being forced upon me, but as this valid alternate option with a community around it and language. And yeah, so for me, this whole subject is still very fresh and very exciting because
Sure.
I've realized I have that capacity.
Glad to hear that you're able to heal and grow and move on from this. I know that it's really pervasive and just something for us to be kind of mindful of. We're going to be talking about a couple of different topics tonight, but I think the real message here is to just be mindful of your identifiers. You know, if you describe yourself as monogamous, if you describe yourself as straight or whatever else, that you at least choose that for yourself and that you find your place on that spectrum rather than just assuming that you're on like the really broad, usually toxic end of things.
Right.
But with that in mind, V, who do you want to talk to first?
Well, we've got some people calling in that are way ahead of us